I wanted to understand what kind of a yogi Sai Baba was. Now the thing is this, that obviously he showed all the siddhis and a lot of miracles and all. He fulfilled the wishes of a lot of the devotees. I read the Agora trilogy, and in that it is quite clearly mentioned actually that whoever Fakir or Pir Baba or Guru, Sadhu, whoever it is, if they are fulfilling wishes of devotees, somebody has to pay the price. There is no free stuff, and that is why I am not clear as to how Sai Baba caused so many miracles, because how is he paying the price? So for me, I was pretty clear that something more would be going on over there. And that is why I came to the Sai Satcharitra, because I was not getting any answers from anywhere. As part of the video, I basically want to cover Sai Satcharitra, and there are a lot of pieces of information in this which, unless you've read the Sai Satcharitra or read more deeper analysis of Sai Baba, you won't know. So do listen forward. And after that, I'm going to cover this place called Khandoba temple, because certain aspects of that temple make more sense after what I know now after reading the Satcharitra. I finished reading the Satcharitra only yesterday, and after finishing it, there was a little bit of a euphoria of some kind, mild euphoria. I'm saying mild euphoria because you should see my Pandharpur vlog. In that there is one little section where right after the darshan of Vithala, I was totally ecstatic actually. You see, I even shot a video that time, and you can see the way the emotions are palpable. Here it was a mild euphoria. So one thing I want to share is that same presence that I felt in Shirdi when I was visiting those places and kind of probing with my perception into the places. Same presence when the moment I didn't have the Satcharitra book, so I randomly just searched online, and there's a free PDF from the official website. So that's when I started reading, and the moment I started scrolling and started to read, that same presence was palpable for me. So I was like, okay. First of all, these content pieces, that little book I read in Shirdi and the Satcharitra, they are very special for me because I resonate with these content creators. Usually for a lot of the yogis, where a lot of renowned people have written about them in-depth stuff, then we may not appreciate each one so much. But especially for Sai Baba, where I did not see that much of content of a certain depth, I need to appreciate these few people who've written something, because otherwise what would we know? We wouldn't know anything. Only thing we would know is when we go and sit in that place and meditate, what we are able to experience, which is actually the most important thing. But obviously the content also plays a role. So I could really resonate with these content creators because they carry forward the deep legacy of Sai Baba, and it reaffirmed for me the importance of this work of creating content, especially in the mediums, in new formats, making it available for future generations. I think it is important. So I got a reaffirmation when I was there, which I am very thankful for. Moreover, if this Sai Satcharitra was only in Marathi, would I have bothered to read it? I don't think so, because it's painstaking for me to read Marathi. I can read it, but it's so slow. Sai Satcharitra is a mix of two things. One is there is devotional eulogy. Every chapter pretty much has a eulogy from the writer, some heartfelt gratitude towards Sai Baba, towards his greatness, all that stuff. But that is just the devotional praising, which every devotee does, and it's beautiful to read it. The second part of the chapter are actual incidents. So for me, for a minute, it was a little bit tricky, because these two things, because the devotional praising is completely subjective, while writing down an actual incident is a very objective sort of a thing. So these two being together was for me a little floopy, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's completely subjective, now it's completely objective. Is it really objective? Are these incidents accurately reported? What if it's part of the praising and just make up stuff? Some small thing may have happened and this person has simply written some major things. So that was a little bit of like, whoa. But anyway, I started reading, and then when I read those practical incident narrations, which are supposed to be objective and factual, I thought they were okay, simply because the devotional part was very clearly subjective. So if he wanted to just continue in that vein, he could have. There was no reason for that person to shift into factual writing. So I kind of thought it was okay. And moreover, I realized that this would be very powerful reading for another devotee, because this is not just factual narration of his life. This has so much devotional stuff added to it. I think it was a very powerful reading experience, even for me, even though I approached it from just very curious to glean certain facts is what I wanted to do. And I thought that was okay because of all the presence I was feeling. I thought that was very interesting. And it answered my key questions. Now I must note here that the presence I felt of Sai Baba, it seemed that presence wanted to fulfill my queries with care and concern. It was very touching. The presence is very touching. It feels like I went to Shirdi with some curiosity, and the presence that is over there have made all the effort to fulfill this curiosity in a very loving and warm way. And this is also the feeling that kept resonating in the writing of Satcharitra, of what a warm being Sai Baba was, how he kept helping, and in the presence I kind of kept getting the same feeling. So something was really nice about this whole thing. Hey everyone, so I felt I needed to reshoot a little bit of this section. I also wanted to add a few things from what I had previously recorded. So I am glad that I did this Sai Baba series in smaller videos, because especially this one I did want to edit and add a few things and then redo it. So the things I found out from the Sai Satcharitra, and also because there were very interesting comments that came once I published the first 2 videos. So some of that also led me to research a little bit more about certain things, and that kind of built my entire picture of... So there are 4 different aspects that I want to touch upon here, and so this video might get a little bit longer than anticipated. The first part is that there are these certain 4 different sadhana practices that Sai Baba was doing, which I kind of felt fell in a similar bucket for me. One of them was that he did Khanda Yoga, which is a practice where the doer will separate all his limbs, and I think they are offered to the deity, or in the process they are just offered, and then of course after the process is finished, the limbs will assemble back and the person is whole again. The sadhaka is whole again. So there is one mention within Sai Satcharitra of somebody having seen Sai Baba's body in all these pieces as part of the Khanta worship. The only other person I've heard who did this was Sadguru Sri Brahma, who is considered the previous birth of Sadguru Jagi Vasudev, and so there is a whole documentary on Sadguru Sri Brahma, and in that this Khanta worship is being mentioned quite clearly. Somewhere near Ooty he was doing it, and somebody ended up seeing him and realized what a great yogi this person was, who was able to do something like Khanta worship, which is a really huge... maybe I should not call it worship, it may be Khanta yoga, maybe it's just a process rather than like a deity offering, I don't know. Obviously not more detail is given in either of those places as far as I know. So I did find the mention of Khanda yoga in Agora too. I do think it is called Khanda yoga and not Khanda yoga. Actually I've only read this term in books, I've never heard anyone else pronounce it, so I don't know how it pronounces. But since I've all of a sudden felt that this should be Khanda Yoga, that makes more sense, because there's a Khanda taking place, no, when you're ripping your limbs out. So yes, there is a section for Khanda Manda Yoga in the Agora book. One of the most terrifying and difficult of all Agora sadhanas is Khanda Manda Yoga. The practitioner of Khanda Manda Yoga cuts off his own arms and legs with a sharp cleaver and throws them into a roaring fire. After 12 hours, these limbs re-emerge from the fire and rejoin his body. Some sadhus can do Ekakhanda yoga, the cutting of one part of a single limb like a foot. A few like Tailang Swami could do 3 Khanda yoga involving 3 parts like the foot, the lower leg and the thigh. But very few, perhaps only 1 or 2 up to now, can do Navakhanda yoga using 9 body parts including the head. And beyond even Navakhanda yoga is Agni Khanda yoga, in which a guru heats his fire tongs white hot and then inserts them under his disciples' skin at the nape of the neck, running them down parallel to the spinal cord. A yogi who is really solid in his being will not even flinch when this happens. This is the physical Khandamanda yoga, and its benefits are many, including imperviousness to any weapon and even physical immortality. It is really a wonderful sadhana, though I suspect you might faint at the sight of all the blood if you ever saw anyone perform it. Most people are very attached to their bodies and don't like even the hint that some part of that body might be chopped off. Obviously, you can only perform Khandamanda yoga once you have developed a certain objectivity with your body. But this is not so easy, you know. It is only possible once you have complete control over your Kundalini Shakti. But this level of practice was, when I read it first time in Sai Satcharitra, I was very surprised. The second one that happens is that the way I do my Jalaneti to clean my nasal passages, Sai Baba also did a cleansing ritual almost on a daily basis. But his was a little bit different, just a little bit. He basically used to, so a lot of people, it seems, if they have seen him doing this cleansing ritual, his intestines are hanging outside. And then he cleans everything. So again, this is the kind of thing I only read in Agora books. And that kind of stuff is which talks about all this. Otherwise, the normal cleansing in yoga and all are very simple stuff, you know. So through these 2 things, I realized that we were all of a sudden going into the kind of stuff I've read either in the Agora books or with Sadguru Sri Brahma, who was a different level of yogi in general. At least what he was doing with himself at that time was something very different. Then there was the piece about Sai Baba sleeping on the swing, the plank, which was suspended in air as a swing by tying the plank to the ceiling in some way. On 4 corners of this plank, the plank was already pretty small. So just the sheer size of the plank, the people used to wonder how Sai Baba even was able to mount it and sleep on it all night through. But moreover, on the 4 corners of this plank, it seems he used to light diyas. So you can imagine when you are sleeping and you have 4 diyas like that, you have to sleep with utter high level of awareness and being on through the entire sleep. And this has been mentioned in another area of the Sai Satcharitra, where he talks about how his practice was to remain in constant remembrance of God. And as a result, all of this was done so that he is in very light sleep, and that was his conscious practice. But he tried to imbibe this kind of practice in one of his devotees, Malsapati, but Malsapati completely failed. Obviously, I mean, the levels would be so different. That's the third one. And the fourth one that is being mentioned within this category of sadhana practices is, it seems there was one occasion where Sai Baba has an asthma attack. In order to cure this, that is what is written in the Sai Satcharitra, in order to cure this asthma attack, he basically went into a very deep samadhi for 3 days. So, to the extent that for those 3 days, he was like a dead person. No breathing was happening, nothing was happening. He had told his close devotee, Malsapati, that to keep his body safe for 3 days, and after 3 days, he would arise. And he had also given instructions that if he does not arise in 3 days, what is to be done. And obviously, once his breathing also stopped, a lot of people wanted to bury him and stuff. But Malsapati guarded his body as per the instructions. Again, this is something very similar which has happened with Sadguru Sri Brahma, where he went underground in a samadhi and he had asked people not to open it, but they opened it, and when they opened it, he was like a dead person, but then they had to revive and he got revived, all that. So yeah, this was it was a bit shocking for me, because the previous findings of Sai Baba did not point towards this level of sadhana, which I've heard in some very different types of yogis, because until this time people were telling me Sai Baba might be a bhakti yoga person or something like that, and then all of a sudden these kind of practices were mentioned in the Sai Satcharitra, so it was very surprising for me. And so I got a couple of comments on the thread about him being part of the Nath Sampradaya, so I did a quick research about the Nath Sampradaya, and that is making sense to me that these kind of practices would exist within that path. So I like this suggestion that he might be from the Nath Sampradaya. It is kind of making sense. However, there are different aspects that I want to add. So this is the first category of sadhanas that were mentioned in Sai Satcharitra, which was really big surprise to me at the time. The second batch now was the fact that Sai Baba, at least with some of his close devotees, he was really close, which was very surprising, because for somebody of this caliber who was doing this kind of Khanta yoga and stuff like that, I would not imagine him, for example, when they are sleeping, he used to sleep with two of his devotees, and the way they will sleep is like all three of them will be facing three different directions, but their feet will be touching together in the middle. Then there were incidents where Sai Baba is massaging the feet of his other devotee. So I just do not see that Nath Sampradaya kind of yogi being this physical with having that kind of intimacy with his devotees. It just came as a very big surprise. It feels to me that there were these two different aspects coming together. Of course, I understand that Sai Baba was a deeply compassionate person, and it kind of makes sense. It's just I've just not seen these two aspects come together, because for example, I read about these kind of practices in Agora books, and those people doing those practices were never said to have done these other set of practices where you're that close to your intimate devotees. Same with Sadhguru Sri Brahma, I cannot think of him. It was, however, very pleasant to read, because for me, there was this intrinsic image that some of these hardcore sadhakas, especially these Agori or Tantric kind of people, or even Nath Sampradaya yogis and all, they would be little bit aloof. They would keep the normal people at arm's length, but maybe not like this, brought a different picture to me. The third aspect I want to talk about was amazingly surprising. Like, there was an incident where one Peer Baba comes there, who was not of a very high category, not a high sadhaka, like a little bit shallow fellow with a lot of ego and stuff. So he comes to Dwarka Mai and sees Sai Baba and stuff, and he stays there for some time, and he decides to take Sai Baba as his disciple. And Sai Baba readily agrees, to the extent that Peer Baba Fakir wanted to go to some other place, so he decides to take his Chela Sai Baba with him. So Sai Baba goes with him also, and then the devotees of Sai Baba get really flustered with what is going on, and then they go to bring Sai Baba back, and then Sai Baba is like, no, but if I go back, this guy will feel bad. And so that triggered for me this very similar thinking that Ramana Maharshi kept doing. Whatever somebody is doing, or even if something stupid somebody is doing, Ramana will just go with it because he doesn't want to hurt that person's feeling. So it was just I just found these different aspects of Sai Baba and incidents that have been narrated in the Sai Satcharitra to be a really surprise actually. I just do not see all of these things going hand in hand. At least I did not till now. But of course now it has been put forward to me, so that I'm I'm just kind of piecing those things together and seeing that it's bringing forth a very different type of enlightened being in yogi. And that's, I think, the best part of when we go deeper into the stories of these yogis, because each one is such an amazing person. I at the end of all my research and findings and all, I was like, these people's lives need to be taught in schools. Because in schools we are talking about all the great people who are the war heroes, or they are the businessmen, or they are the social reformers, but some of the biggest people that we value as within the Indian culture are our yogis, our saints. These yogis, saints were advising the kings. The kings are spoken about in school textbooks, but the yogis and saints, we barely know anything about them. So yeah, I was really fascinated by all this. And there is the fourth category I want to talk about, which is the Islamic aspect of Sai Baba. One thing was that he kept chanting Allah Malik. So he kept saying Allah's name. So that was a very clear Islamic aspect that was part of his life. There were a few other aspects also as I was gleaning through. Not a specific incident is coming to my mind right now, but there were quite a few speckled around. And I have read about some very accomplished fakirs and Peer Babas in the Agora books. That was interesting for me. And then, of course, when I was researching about Sai Baba, I realized that there are a lot of controversy theories as well. A lot of people are claiming he's there to convert Hindus into Muslims. And I also went through the Sai Satcharitra, and repeatedly Sai Baba seems to have told his devotees that whoever was your deity or the deity you love to worship before you met me, you must continue worshipping the deity. So I don't see where the angle of conversion is coming in. But as I look deeper into the Nath Sampradaya, I realized that it is a pure spiritual path, it seems, even though I guess it has been taken into the formal Hindu religion structure. But more and more, it is being spoken that Hindu was never a religious structure. It's more a way of life. It's more the culture of this land. And it has always been very inclusive, and the spiritual paths have always been open to anyone of any religion and any birth and any caste and all that stuff. So I think it is time that we kind of need to broaden our horizon. And I am amazed that a huge example for this inclusivity is there in Sai Baba's example, and I don't know if that is being understood. And so I looked, so one of the examples I found apart from Sai Baba, and of course there is Shri M also, who is born as a Muslim and is part of the Nath Sampradaya, it seems. So there is also another example. Yogi Adityanath, the CM of Uttar Pradesh, there was a news clipping that one of the very similar Muslim born Nath Sampradaya spiritual person, Yogi Adityanath actually came down to meet him at one of his occasions. And so very clearly this is happening not just with Sai Baba and Shri M, who somebody may, if they are casting aspersions to, then what about Yogi Adityanath, who is this beacon of RSS and all that stuff? He is going down and completely accepting, honoring a Muslim born Nath Sampradaya spiritual figure. So it is really amazing. I am really glad to come across all this stuff when I have delved into Sai Baba. And so what has happened is that through this I have also kind of gotten an entry point into understanding the Nath Sampradaya. I have kind of taken a first few steps to understand that Sampradaya, and that's very interesting for me as well. So yes, I found this a very fruitful exercise, to be honest, and I am very happy with I think I've got an overall good picture of who Sai Baba was. So it seems that when he was 16 years old, he was spotted in Shirdi under the neem tree. And then he left for a few years. After that, around 20, he again came back to Shirdi with a marriage procession, and from then on he was in Shirdi. This whole neem tree, which is called a Guru Sthanam, it seems when they dug under it, they found some. I have now read two accounts. at one time they found some samadhi of a Pir Baba or something. At a second time I've read that when they saw a dark passageway going inside and there were lamps lit over there. Obviously the Shirdi town was there, so if this is a young boy, if there was some underground passage or anything, the Shirdi locals would have seen it, unless it was happening in some other realm. Which then brings us back to Shri M's video where he said he met Sai Baba but in a different realm of some kind. So I don't want to talk more there because we don't know anything about it. So then let me talk about the Khandoba temple. So Khandoba temple is one of the temples where Sai Baba has spent some time, I think, and so I went there and they allowed me to shoot the video, so I just shot a few things. There is one Akhand Diya over there, which is always very interesting for me because I peep inside and look at the mechanism properly. Because I also had an Akhand Diya for many years actually. Behind the Akhand Diya there is a muddy patch. And I was curious what it was, and all of a sudden I saw the board and I understood what it was. On certain days in the Khandoba temple, they have this ritual of men walking on burning coals. This is something that also happens in certain temples in Tamil Nadu. I was not expecting it here simply because as you realize at that time I had not read Sai Satcharitra, which means I was still thinking what kind of path does Sai Baba have. I thought it was a devotee or something like that. Now we have a part here where the devotees are being asked to walk on coal. There is a board over there which says that what Sai Baba said is that for his devotee Malsapati can walk on these coals towards the deity, which is a little distance away. So he can walk towards the deity and will make his devotion much more deeper. I found that really powerful, and this whole thing of walking on burnt coals was unexpected, and I suspect a lot of you who would have been visiting Shirdi are probably not aware of it. So that is very interesting, and that practice still happens as far as I understand on specific days. So I don't know which day it may be, but if it's something you're interested in, even I would really like to watch it. It's only for men over there, but some of the temples in Tamil Nadu, I believe it's for men and women. So these things are happening in India even today.